Welcome to another Excel VBA tutorial. In today's video, we are going to actually explore a topic again within PowerPoint. So we've seen how we can take different Excel objects and then copy them over to a PowerPoint presentation, but I realized that we actually never went over a very common type of request, which is we have all these different types of Excel objects and we want to put them all on the same slide and we want to put them into different positions. So what we're going to do in today's video is we're going to take multiple Excel objects of different types and we're going to export them all in a single run through and we're going to copy them over to a single slide in a PowerPoint presentation and then readjust them with the height and the size and all those wonderful dimensions. So we're going to be covering a lot today, so naturally it's kind of an expansion on the last couple of videos where I did that with PowerPoint. So if you're confused at any point in this video about kind of what I am doing, I encourage you to go watch those other videos because I go into much more detail about kind of what we're doing when we're taking different Excel objects and moving them over to PowerPoint. So as you can currently tell in my workbook, I have an Excel range, a list object, and then a chart. And what we're going to do is we're going to take each one of these objects, put it into a PowerPoint presentation, and position them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump in my Visual Basic editor. And then if you haven't already, you need to make sure you insert a module. So you just right-click, click Insert, and you're good to go. And then from here, we have to enable the PowerPoint object library, so that way we can declare PowerPoint object variables from within our particular VBA editor. So we're going to go up to Tools. So right up here, we're going to click Tools, down to References. And I've used this library before, so it's already enabled and right here at the top. What you're going to want to do is go down to M for Microsoft. And then it will be somewhere right around here with P. And you want to make sure you get the PowerPoint object library. And so you're going to see it like that. You want to check that box so that way it's enabled. You will see a different number here, maybe, not always, but all that number means is you're on an earlier version of Office, and all that is telling you is that, hey, it's just an earlier version of that object library. Everything we're going to do in today's video should work regardless of what version you're on, so don't worry about that. Once you've checked that box, you can press OK, and now we're going to declare a bunch of variables. So let's get started. So first thing, I'm going to create a new subroutine, and I'm going to call it sub copy multi objects to PPT, so to PowerPoint. First group of variables that we're going to declare is the PowerPoint variables, so we're going to declare our PowerPoint variables. The first one will be called PPT app, and this will be a PowerPoint.application object, so it's going to house the PowerPoint application itself. The next one is going to be called PPT Pres. This is going to be a PowerPoint presentation object, so we need a presentation within our new PowerPoint application. So we're going to create a presentation and then store it in this particular variable. And then we're going to need a slide for our particular presentation. So we're going to call the PPP slide, and then we're going to do it as a PowerPoint slide object. And then finally, we're going to have some shapes in our slide. So we're going to declare our final variable, which is PPT shape. And this, as you guessed it, will be a PowerPoint shape object variable. Okay, from that one, we're going to move on to our Excel variables. So we're going to declare our Excel variables. This one will be fun. This one, we're going to declare the first one as EXC object, so Excel object. And then this one will be declared as a variant. And then there's going to be one more that we're going to declare as a variant. It is called object type. I'll explain what that is later in the video. It will make much more sense once you see it. And then we need to declare a couple of arrays that will store information that is in our particular Excel workbook. And so, well, it's not information in our Excel workbook. Really what we're storing in is the dimensions that we want to apply to each shape. And so, there's kind of different ways you can do this, but I like to store it in arrays because I think it's just easier personally. And if you're only doing with a couple objects, it's usually pretty easy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to declare a couple more variant objects. I'm just going to put them on another line. The first one will be the left array. Next one will be the top array. Next one will be the height array. And then the final one will be the width array. And these will all be variant. And then finally, I need something that I'm going to have to loop through when I'm going through my iterator. So I'm going to declare that variable here, and I'm just going to call it x. And this will be an integer data type. And then actually, I need one more, I guess, variant data type. It's an array, but it's going to house our different Excel objects that we're going to export. So I'm going to call that object array. And so that will house our different Excel objects that we want to export. Okay. From here, now we can create a new instance of PowerPoint. So I'm going to create a new instance of PowerPoint. So I'm going to set my PPT app equal to a new PowerPoint.application. I want to make sure I can see it. So I'm going to set the visible property equal to true. And then I want it to be the main window in my particular system. So I'm going to call the activate method to bring it to the front. And then from here, we're going to create a new presentation. So we're going to create a new presentation. So we're going to set the PPT pres equal to the PPT app dot the presentations collection, and then we're going to call the add method. So this is a collection of all the presentation objects in our PowerPoint application. Well, currently we don't have any, but when we call the add method, we will have one. And then from here, I'm going to create a new slide in the presentation. And I'm going to do that by setting my PPT slide equal to my PPT pres dot slides and then dot add. It's not add slide, it's add. And then I want it to be the first slide, and I'll have it have a layout of blank. Okay. Now we're going to create our array that's going to store our different Excel objects. So, when we do this one, we're going to have a list of all the objects that we want to export. So we're going to create array to house objects we want to export. And so that means I am going to take my object array and set that equal to an array. And then I put my brackets in there, and now it's just basically a list of all the objects. So really, each one of these is an object on the particular worksheet that I'm working in, and it's sheet 2. But really, I want something that's a little bit more stable, so that way if the sheet name changes, the order of the sheets change, this code will stay, pretty much work in all those instances. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use the code ID for that particular sheet. And as you can see right here, it's actually sheet 2. So if I put sheet 2 in here, and even if I change the name of it, I rearrange the order of it, I add new sheets, that will stay the same. I even actually added a sheet and then deleted it so that way that, even after deleting it, it still stayed a sheet 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do sheet 2, and then I'm going to put my range first. And my range goes from B2 to D5. Okay, so that's my first object. And then my next one is sheet 2 dot chart objects. So I'm going to go in my chart objects collection. I want the first chart I created, so that's that one. And then I'm going to go into my list objects collection and get my first list. And that does it actually. That's all the different objects that we're going to export. So we got the range, we got the chart, and then we got the list object. Okay. Next thing that we're going to do is we're going to declare all of our, I guess you can call them dimension arrays. So these are going to be housing all the dimensions that we want to apply to a particular shape. And so as you can tell, I've created basically 4 of them. So I'm going to define my dimension arrays. The first one that I will define is my left array. And then this will be an array. And no, I don't have this memorized. I have this all written down with all these numbers. I'm definitely not that smart. 59.3, 59.3, and 451.5. So how we read this is the first object will have a left position of 59.3, second object will have a left position of 59.3, and then our third and final object will have a left position of 451.5. And then I'm going to do my top array, will be again an array, and this one will be 270, and then comma, and then 34.4, and comma, and then it will be 34.44, comma, and then I need to do my height array. That will, again, will be an array, and this one will be 105.27, and then my next one will be 215.25, and then 131.64. And then finally my width array will be an array, and then this one will be 359.23, and then 359.25, and then 449.22. So you can kind of tell with this method, it's okay if you got like a couple of shapes, but man, you start going into 20 or 30 different shapes, this is not going to be manageable. More than likely, probably what I would more than likely do is probably take the size that I have on it in Excel, so you can actually retrieve the shape dimensions within Excel. So that's obviously a route we could go if we wanted to. We'll probably do that in another video just because that would take this video a lot longer than I want it to be. But in this example, since we're just doing a couple different shapes, we'll just keep it simple like it is right now. Alrighty, so that's our dimension arrays. Now what we're going to do is we're going to loop through our object array and then basically copy each object. So we're going to loop through the object array and copy each object. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say for x equals, and then we want the lower bound of my object array. Yes, and then to the upper bound of my object array, and then what we're going to say is next. And so now we're going to loop through basically from the lower section of my array all the way up to the upper section of my array. So it's going to go this one first, this one second, and then this one third. And then from here, we actually have to do a couple things. Because we're now working with a lot of different Excel objects at the same time, we can't just simply copy them because we'll actually get some errors if we try to copy them. And so what we have to do is we first have to determine what the object type is that we're working with. And once we know what we're working with, we can use a case statement to basically specify how we want to copy it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to determine the object type first. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say the object, what is it? Oh no, it's uppercase. Object type equals, and then there's a type name function, and what I can do is I can pass through each element in my array. So I'm going to say take my object array, and then just say whatever element we are in our loop, pass that through the function, and that will return the object name, so the actual type of object it is. And then from here, depending on the object type, copy it a certain way. And so what I'm doing is I'm going to say select case, and then I'm going to say, well, what am I actually testing? Well, I'm testing the object type. I'm going to end my select statement, and I'm going to say, okay, case, and if it's a range, so if it comes back as a range, then what I want you to do is set the object, what is it, Excel object, set the Excel object equal to object array x, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say Excel object dot copy, and all I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to copy this one multiple times. Okay. Oh, perfect. Okay, there's that one, and then I need one more, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if the next one is, I believe, a chart object. Yes, chart object. chart object, then I'm going to say that, and then I'm going to say, okay, chart dot chart area dot copy. And then finally, if it's a list object, then we're going to say, hey, take that Excel object and then copy, take the range property of it and then copy that one. So let's just take a step back and kind of, take a look at what we just wrote. So again, we're looping through each element. The first thing I'm going to ask is, okay, what is the type of object that I'm working with? Depending on the type of the object that I'm working with, I have to copy it a certain way. And how I do that is I use the select case statement. So here, what I'm doing is I'm saying, okay, if the object type is array, just call the normal copy method. If the object is a chart object, then copy it by calling the chart property, then the chart area property, and then copy. And if it's a list object, then simply call the range property of that list object and then copy it. The reason you have to do this is because up here, we're storing it as a variant. And when we're doing that, we can't just normally call the copy method. It actually will produce an error, at least all the times I've tried it. I mean, if someone else is having a different experience, please put them down in the comments. But when I've ever done it, I was getting all sorts of errors. I realized that in this particular way, it's better just to know kind of the object that you're working with and then copy it that way. That way, on top of being able to copy it, you can also kind of work around different stability issues that might arise at the same time. So this is kind of how my approach to it, at least. Okay, and then since we've done that, we're actually going to pause the application too. So I'm going to say, hey, pause the Excel application, and I'm going to say, okay, call the application object, and then I'm going to call the wait method. I'm going to say now plus, and then my number sign 0001 AM, and then that will pause it for 1 second. And then from here, we're going to paste it in the side. So we're going to paste the object in the slide. And so I am going to call the PPT slide object, and then I'm going to go in the shapes collection, and then I'm going to call the paste special method, and then I'm going to do data type. We'll do OLE objects. PP, and then paste OLE object. Okay, I want to make sure I spelled that right. Paste OLE. Okay, perfect. Yeah, it gets picky if you don't spell it right. Okay, so now that we pasted it, we need to select the shape that we just, we just pasted on the slide, and then we're going to set the dimensions of it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a reference to the shape. And so I'm going to set PPT shape equal to PPT slide dot shapes. And then I'm going to count the number of shapes that I currently have in my, slide. And so I'm going to say PPT slide dot shapes and then dot count. If this line confuses you, I go over it in a different video. It's where we're actually manipulating, PowerPoint shapes. Excel shapes from within PowerPoint. So if you kind of want more of a deeper understanding of kind of why I'm doing this and the different ways to do this, I encourage you to watch that video. I'll make sure to put a link for that one down below. And then from here, I just like to select it just because I like to make sure that I'm actually, working with my selection. And then I'm going to say, okay, with my PPT shape, I'm going to say, okay, and with, actually, you know what? I'm going to take that out and just try it. Sometimes it gives me a little bit of an issue if I don't put it there, but I'm going to try it without it first. And then if it does, we'll add it back in. So I'm going to say left, and then this will simply be my array X. My height will equal my height array, and then X, and then my width will be my width array, and then my top will be my top array, and then again X. So this, I'm set the dimensions of my shape. Okay, And then really what I did here is, again, I'm working with my PowerPoint shape. I'm setting each of the dimension properties. And then all I'm doing is I'm leveraging the loop that I'm already in, because each one of these has 3 elements. And if this one's going to go from the first one to the second one to the third one, then let's just kind of leverage it already. The only thing you have to make sure is that everything is in the order that you want it. So for example, if this is your first object, and then technically this, well, this is kind of a bad example, but technically this 270 was meant for your third object. Well, now you're going to be assigning the 270 to your first object in that loop. So you really want to make sure that you order this exactly the same. So if this is the first one, then these need to be the dimensions of the first object. These need to be the dimensions of the second object. And then finally, these need to be the dimensions of the third object. So just keep that in mind. So we're going to try and run it and see what we get. Perfect. So it copied each one of those objects over to a PowerPoint slide. And then more importantly, we were now working with each different type of object in the same loop. And we also set the dimensions of all of those different objects. Now, again, if you got a couple shapes and this is how you kind of want to do it, I think that's fine. If you're starting to get up there with like 10 or 15 shapes, I don't think this is going to be a reasonable approach. Normally, what I would maybe even encourage you to do, if it's going to be something where you really feel that you're going to have to do this over and over again, you got to kind of weigh it yourself, but maybe put an Excel table within your particular Excel workbook, and then get all the information that you need from that particular Excel workbook. From that particular Excel table, and then just kind of like upload it into, the arrays. So you can have each column be a different array, and then just loop through each one of those arrays. Me personally, that's kind of how I would do it. I think that's more manageable, but again, it really just depends on the situation. I'll think about if I can maybe make a little bit more of a complicated, video where we're saying, okay, now they're across like 10 different worksheets, and, we got to put them on all these different, slides. I'll start working on that one and seeing how we can maybe, simplify it and really just kind of get back to the core essence of, we're just trying to copy and paste into PowerPoint. But regardless, if you have any questions about kind of what we covered today, please make sure to put them down in the comments below. I want to make sure I get, your questions answered. Also, if you could make sure to like the video, we always appreciate the support. So I encourage you to please like the video. And then also, if you're not already, make sure to subscribe to the channel, so that way you get regular updates as we release new videos and all that fun stuff. Hopefully you guys are finding these videos helpful and everything like that. I really encourage people, please put down ideas for other videos. I'm always open to hearing them. And if you've got a good idea, I'll definitely go out and do the research and then make a video for you. So thanks again for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next video.